Welcome to the Grace Hour, Christian show where we're going to learn just practical things about our faith. And we're starting off the week this week just talking about discipleship. I don't know if that's the title necessarily, discipleship, but it's fathers, brothers, and just the importance of having spiritual people in our life. Naturally speaking, we have fathers in our life that are examples. And then also, spiritually speaking, in the church, when we walk in our faith and we're following Christ, Philippians chapter 2, Paul lays out that Christ is the example for all of us, and he's perfect. And as human beings, we're not perfect, so he is the goal and he is the example. But we also need people that are imperfect like ourselves, other human beings. And Paul lays out in Philippians chapter 2, just talking about how we have different men in our lives that can be examples that we can aim for. And the Apostle Paul is a great example because he said to the Corinthians and also to the Philippians that I want you guys to live your life doing what I do and speaking the way that I speak because I follow Christ and I want you to follow me. So we're going to be talking about today. And in the studio today, we got Colton, Herb, and we're going to be having a great conversation. And the way we're going to do this today, I think, is more so that Colton works for an organization, Christian organization that helps churches with discipleship and going into churches and just training up men that are spiritually mature, that are those examples in the church, that can be examples for other younger men or just people that are spiritually developing and just need someone in their life that can be a target and just help them along the way so that they can grow in that nature and character, which we call Christ. So thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So give us a little run through. We had a good weekend this past weekend. You helped us out. You're going to be helping us out with our church down in Fed Hill, just with discipleship because it's such a huge need. In the last couple of years, there's been a number of guys that have come to me and said, hey, I just need a mentor. I just need someone in my life that I can be accountable to, because we do have a lot of young men, and we have a lot of young men that are just starting off in their faith, and they're looking for direction. And they get direction from the pulpit. They get direction with Bible studies. They get direction pastorally, but they want something personal in their life. So this is what you're doing. Yeah. And you gave us training this past weekend, which was a great time. What did you think about the weekend?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I think something that always like fills my cup is getting on a weekend with a group of guys and just talking real life. Like we're not perfect, right? So it's just going away, talking through what's real in life, where we're struggling, where we're doing okay, and then just kind of making action steps on how we work and get better, get stronger in our faith, whatever it may be, better husbands, right? Better fathers. Like we all have room to improve. So just kind of calling those things out, being transparent, and then helping each other grow and holding each other accountable to it. So yeah, I love this weekend. It was fun, especially with like people I knew. Sometimes I do it for groups and I don't really know the guys, but this weekend, like my brother was there. I mean, hanging out with some of the other guys that I've been around all my life. So it's really cool to like just kind of chop it up and spend time with them and dive into things that they're struggling with and how I can help in any way.
It was an experience I've never had before. First off, you got us a sick place. We're out in, it was Western Maryland, no, Southern PA.
Yeah.
And you got us a nice house, fed us, top notch.
Tried.
That was unreal. And we were just there in a completely different environment. And the way that you guys do it when you do this training, we're just starting off working with you guys. And the way that you do it is that we go away, completely different environment, different place, different pace. Yep. And we just sat in a living room on a Saturday. We got there Friday night, had a great time, and then we just sat in a living room. And thank God you got a nice living room too. I mean, we had those nice lazy boys, and all of us were just sitting in a circle in a beautiful place out in the country. And we just chopped it up for 8 hours or so. And that was an amazing thing. That exercise, tell a little bit about the exercise that we did just with our faith walk with Christ over the years.
Yeah, so like one of the exercises you do in, I think it's session 2, we jump into like map your faith out, like from the beginning to where you are now. And I love that exercise because you actually gives you a chance to actually critically think of like, what did God do in my life to get me to actually like sitting in this lazy boy at that retreat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even for my life, I look back and I'm like, oh, this is where God showed up. This is where I made a bad decision, right? And as you map that out and you're looking at it, you're like, yeah, it wasn't as easy, as I maybe thought it was or how I ended up at this spot. But looking back gives you such great perspective on where God's brought you from. Because sometimes I think we lose focus of that. We get so focused with like what's going on now or what the future is, but we never take a chance just to look back for a minute and be like, God showed up here. He redeemed me here. He forgave me there. He saved my marriage here, saved my faith walk in general. I think that's something huge for me. Like there was a season when I kind of stepped away from church through college and those times, and I wasn't really. I still believed in God, but I wasn't after him, right? I wasn't really chasing him, and there was that season my life was wild, and that's when the attacks were coming against me. Satan was on me, and there was that like I have a hard stop where my dad like sat me down across the table. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like I'll never like it was like that like interrogator, like the one light's on, like that hard conversation. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And that was like a whole switch in my mind because my identity was in swimming. My identity was going to college. That's what my identity was. Is I was this big time swimmer, and that all came to rubble. And it was great though. A turning point, had to go work in a warehouse. Like I felt like I was that like prodigal son a little bit, like feeding the pigs. Like I'm in a warehouse, like sweating like crazy, loading tractor trailers. Like I thought I was this, but then come to find out I'm really not that. But God used that to grow me. I've learned so much from that season, and that allows me to be able to speak to some of these guys that are struggling. Like I know, like I've been there. Like I get it. Like I know what you're going through. So yeah, it's always fun to do that exercise to take a look back and see what God's done in your life.
You gave us a half hour. You gave us a big piece of paper, markers, and we had to just do a timeline. I've never done it before.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was so helpful for me because I could kind of categorize what God has moved me through in the different stages.
Yeah.
And everyone, I don't know how many guys we had, 11 guys, was it?
Yep.
And I think you maybe allotted everybody 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you would think like we could try to get it maybe a little bit over an hour, and then 2 hours later we're still going through it. I think I was the last one to do it, and it moved me so much. In one sense, I shared some things I probably haven't shared with too many people. And the thing that stuck out to me when everyone was talking about salvation and then talking about just growing in their faith, one of the questions was different influential people. And I think out of the 11, I want to say 9 of them said their father. So they said that their father was the most important person in their spiritual walk.
Yeah.
And 1 Corinthians chapter 16 just talks about what a godly man is.
Yeah.
And having a godly man, there's 2 other guys and their relationship with their father was a little bit different. And we're going to see that in the church as well, that some people are coming from homes that their father wasn't a believer, or their parents weren't believers for sure, or their father maybe wasn't the best role model or example for them, but they've made it through and they've made amends with their father. But what do you think a godly man is, and why is a father so important for us in our spiritual walk with the Lord?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it right out of the gate with, 1 Corinthians 16, 13 through 14. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, and act like men. Be strong. My favorite part of this is that 14. Let all that we do be done in love. And when I think of that verse, like, act like men's the hub. That's the middle part. But be watchful. Like, that's huge as men. Like, Satan's after us. Like, he is after us. Like, and I think we sometimes think it's not a big deal, but he's a lion. Like there's an analogy given to me one time. Have you ever seen a lion like rip a carcass apart? Like that's what Satan wants to do to you. He wants to rip you limb from limb, mentally, physically, any way he can, and to take you out of this race that we're in. And I think as men, we need to be watchful, not only for our own families, but for us as a church. Like we need to be vigilant in what we're looking towards and what we see coming, because that's the only way that we know that the enemy's coming. Or are we just with our heads down? How are you going to know? So just being watchful is huge, and stand firm in the faith. Like, what are we rooted in? Like, what have you been taught over the years? I think back over my life, even the season that was a little wild for me, like those things kept me. Those things kept me. The grace, the love that I've learned about. And I just think every time you hear it, you say, wow, sometimes I always love this part. Like, oh, I've already heard that message before, right? We'll put it there. No. Hear that message again and get deeper roots in that area, right? Sometimes we always just like, I've already heard about grace. No. How deep are your roots in grace? Because when the storm comes in your life, the roots is what's holding you, right? Because we recognize the wind and all those things, but what's the roots look like? And I think that's where we start like, what's your depth in all of these, the love, the grace, the mercy, the blood of Jesus? You know, do we know that? Do we know that for ourselves? And my favorite thing is like, be strong. Sometimes we think of like real macho man, but no, we're doing it all in love though. Like, do we lead that way? And you, as you said there, like with our fathers, like that's a representation, or probably I would say is our first representation of what Christ is to us. As kids growing up. Like that's what I think, or that's my role model. In a way, like when I grew up, like my dad was my role model until I learned about maybe Batman and Superman and all those other guys, right? But like he was my role model. I watched how he moved. I watched how he interacted. Like he was our youth leader for a while. Watched how he did that, you know, pastoring. Like your children and people are watching you, and they're taking note whether you believe it or not. And even just men, even if you're not in one of those positions, there's men that are watching other men and how they move. And it could be good or bad. I think that's why we have to be so watchful in how we interact. Do we lead with love? Like, I think it's super crucial. So, yeah, that's what I say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most important relationships that you can have. And obviously, it's not always going to be perfect with a lot of people. But I think with the guys this past weekend and knowing some of their fathers, a lot of times we can think of discipleship as being someone's going to sit us down and then teach us the word, which that is true, but you can have the precepts or you can have the doctrine or the teaching, but then it's better to be able to actually see the teaching in work in your life. It needs to be exemplified or embodied. So you have the message of grace, but then when you have someone who's living in your life or you're living in their world, and then they're exemplifying the things that they're teaching you from Scripture, but then they're showing it in their character, that speaks volumes. So a lot of times we can think discipleship is, I'm going to sit you down and tell you everything that you need to know, which it is that, and it can be that we need to be taught those precepts, but being able to see someone forgive you. I remember with my father getting in trouble and, you know, doing something I shouldn't do, and then him sitting me down and him laying into me, it just in the sense of, what are you doing? And then getting to the end of it and being forgiven. And then I remember him saying one time, he says, okay, we're never going to talk about this again. It's over. And guess what? Never was brought up again. It was completely forgotten. It was out of sight, out of mind. And my identity wasn't rooted in what I just did. That was grace. So I understood grace from that example of him dealing with me that way. And that is discipleship. He discipled me that way. And then I saw something in his life that I wanted. Yeah. I saw some vision that he had, and I realized you get a little bit older and you realize in life, if I don't have a vision, I'm going to be floating all over the place, and that is a completely insecure place to be, and I don't want to be there. I want to be like a guy who's moving a certain direction. I want to have authority in my life, in my marriage, in my family. I want to be a person who has authority in their life. When they talk, they don't just talk words, but rather they're talking truth because it's based upon how they're living their life. So I want that. So having that person or that father to be able to say, even when I'm screwed up, I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but that guy seems like he's secure, he's stable, and he's going somewhere. And I'm just so thankful that I have someone like that in my life. So when we're talking about discipleship in the church, how important is it for men? And who are the men? Is it just pastors that are doing the discipling? But who are the men in the church that should be doing this work?
I think something that we always have to highlight is, as pastors, as leaders, as men, we're training the next generation. You got to own that, right? I always think to myself, my son is 1.5 years now. Like, I want the church to still be around when he's around. And it is on my shoulders, right? Take ownership of it, of continuing the faith. And as men, we need to step up in that area. I think sometimes we try to be passive. We just had that men's conference a couple weekends ago, and Zane talked about that, how passivity is one of the biggest killers for men. I believe it. Because as we sit back and my dad always says, sit on the couch and eat Twinkies. Like, that can be our mindset, right? Well, I go on Sunday, that checks the box. No, how are we growing the next generation? As we look back at those faith stories, like you were saying, God's brought you through all those things for a reason. I can use my testimony to help someone else out. Guys, as we went around the room and we were talking through those stories, a lot of the stories were similar. They were a little off, maybe different location, but there was a general theme of like prodigal son the whole way through every story. To a certain extent, like I was in there, I was out, I was struggling. But I think like as men, we have to step up in the area so the faith continues and disciple. Every man needs to, even women. Like I think sometimes we always think like men just need to, like women should be discipling as well. And I think they do very well at that. Like, but it's the guys you got to like, come on.
Why do you think that is?
I think they connect very easily. They can connect and have those conversations. That's a natural thing. They can open up, be vulnerable. Pulling that out of a guy is very tough. To like, let's talk real stuff. Let's talk even some emotion in there. Like, what are you going through? Like, be real with me. And understanding what's the root to that. Like one of the things like I see all the time is guys struggling with an area in their life. And it's like, why? What's the root of that? Where does that actually come from? Like you're actually looking at a side effect, right? I always tell guys that you're doing something or that's a side effect of something that's deeper. Insufficiency, my identity. Like there's something deeper there. Let's get to it. And that's that working through, looking at those. Why are you doing that? You feel insufficient in some way. You don't feel like you're the man your wife didn't eat, like whatever it is. And like diving deep into that. So as we talk through discipleship and like you were saying, like every man needs to be discipling somebody. I truly believe that. I need to be pouring what God's given me, what I'm receiving from the pulpit, I'm pouring into somebody else. I can build them up. I can maybe give that word in season that they need. Like we never know when a word in season is needed. That's something that I've been very cognizant of recently is looking like if someone pops in my mind, I'm texting them. That's just something I've been like, I don't care. It doesn't have to be a message. It doesn't have to be anything wild, but hey, praying for you right now. And you never know when that text, I mean, we were talking through some of those, like those messages come through and it's just like, all right, I need to text that guy. I need to send that message. So discipleship is huge. That's how we can make a strong church as well. It's not doesn't always fall on the pastor. Like I hear that all the time. Like I can't disciple everybody, right? Like I got to preach. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. Like you're already pulled 1,000 different directions. So to have men in the church that are stepping up to the plate to help disciple is amazing. Then you watch that church grow, and then you get to see the ripple effect. Like the church, if you get a strong church, watch the community start to change. And that's what we're all about at Men of Iron. Like changing a culture one man at a time. Like it takes that one guy to make that decision, and the ripple effect that happens. It's amazing.
What do you think holds guys back from actually engaging with that? Because I remember Pastor Stephen said, I was probably a teenager when he said it. Definitely was probably a teenager when he said it. But he said the person that's the most bored in church is the person that just comes and receives and then does nothing with it. And like you said earlier, it could be, oh, I've heard that message before. But you need to hear that message again, just so those roots can go deeper. And the roots only go deeper when you actually apply what you're being taught. So what do you think holds guys back from actually engaging with discipling other men?
They don't know how to do it. I think if you even ask yourself that question, I think we did the first time we got together. Like, how do you do it? Like, what's the bones to it? What's the framework? Like, and at the end of the day, if you really want to boil it down, it's having just a conversation, right? Let's just get real with each other. Let's grab a coffee. Let's just talk for an hour. What's going on in your life? What's your faith like? What are you doing to help grow it? Right? Because there's two ways to move. It's either forwards or backwards. That's it. There's no in between. That's that passivity we were talking about. So looking at your life that way, excuse me, and looking at our life that way and thinking, okay, if I'm trying to move forward in that discipleship, in that talking, like I need to have that conversation to make that happen, right? And I think that's what holds guys back, so they just don't know how to do it. And to be truthful, there's not much to it. It's just being available, number one. I think a lot of guys, I'm too busy. We were talking about this last night on the phone. Oh, man, I'm so busy. No, do you have kids? You got a job? You got all this? No, you're not that busy, right? Are you pastoring a church? Like all these different, like you put all these things together, like you're really not that busy. You can make time for an hour to meet with a guy, maybe once or twice a month, and just talk real life. And I think sometimes guys think they have to know it all. I'm not asking you to know it all. I'm asking you to take what your testimony is and help another guy out. Or what you've heard from the pulpit, and maybe he didn't hear that message the same way you heard it. You have deeper roots in that area. So you're like, okay, this makes more sense for you. So just looking at that and just being available to guys, I think is where discipleship starts. Yes, you can get down deeper and working through different things. But I think for the bare bones of it, it's just being available to meet with a guy one-on-one and pouring into his life. And the funny thing is what I see all the time is the mentor actually gets built up and encouraged more than even the guy that's coming to meet with him.
For sure.
It happens day in and day out.
For sure.
Yeah.
And if not, if you're just sitting on the sidelines, then it seems as though that, let's just say you're in a church and you're not necessarily really engaged in other people because you don't feel as though that's your job, let's just say. But Jesus gives us the command in Matthew chapter 28, if you're going to be my disciple, and there's no difference between a disciple and a Christian. It's the same word. Let's just say they're synonymous. So if you're a Christian, you should be a disciple maker. But if you're not doing it, then you're going to have a lot of unspent energy. And that unspent energy can go towards being negative towards the church rather than saying that I could be a part of actually growing this church or making this church healthier. If I don't engage with it, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and I can just be a critic. And it's easy to be a critic.
100%.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do. I mean, we just live in a world that everybody's a critic about everything. Everyone seems as though that they know better than the people that are actually engaged in what's going on. If it be the NFL, sports, politics, you just sit on the sidelines and you just critique and give your opinion. But if you get into the battle, which is you're getting into somebody else's life, and I think that could be a deterrent for people as well, is that I have my own problems in my own life, and I need someone to come and help me with my problems. And that's real, and people need help. But at the same time, if I can enter into somebody else's issues, which doesn't on the surface seem as though that's something that I would want to do. It doesn't seem so attractive. But when you do it, you find that the Holy Spirit can fill you and it can give you wisdom. Yeah. And then you can give wisdom. He's going to supply everything that you need to be able to help that other individual across from you. And when that happens, you realize you're receiving something that you wouldn't receive if you weren't engaged in it.
Yep.
So then your faith starts to become more real to you. And like you said, the mentor, the discipler leaves that conversation or that time and he feels built up like I needed that.
Yeah.
I have one guy, I told you about him this weekend. He's younger in his faith and he's moving along and progressing in a beautiful way. But we meet on Sunday mornings or we meet on Saturdays for an hour. We've been going through Proverbs 3 for the last 5 weeks. He's memorized half the chapter. And when I leave that, I'm thinking to myself, and I tell him, I say, I needed that. That was such great fellowship that we just had. We open up Proverbs 3, and for me, I don't know where we're going to go, but within a half hour, we're in the New Testament. We're comparing things from Proverbs 3 to different places in Scripture. And then I leave, and I'll go into the pulpit if it's a Sunday morning that we're doing it, and I'm so filled up in my mind with the conversation that we just had. He's edified, I'm edified, and I'm just like, I want more of this in my life.
Yeah.
And how do we encourage guys so that they can actually engage with it and taste what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that is like the biggest piece. I think through that all the time, really. Like, what if the whole church was doing that? Like, I think
what we want.
You know what I mean?
That's why we need your help. That's why you're training us, because that's what I want to see in the church.
Right? Like, imagine that as I thought that even after the weekend, and I even said a little bit about that. Imagine if Sailors Union, Fed Hill Church, is like, all the men are doing this. What kind of church does that create? Right? That creates a disciple-making church, right? That we're changing a culture within inside that church, and then we're going out into the community and doing the same thing. Like, that's what we want. That's what God has asked us to do. but putting bones to it, right? Getting that structure to it so guys don't feel weird or uncomfortable. They know where they're going or what the pattern or what the schedule is for them. Put bones to it. Make yourself available and watch God work. That's what I tell guys all the time. Watch God work. It's not about you. I'm going to be honest. Like, and it's not even, I'll even cut it even closer. It's not even about Men of Iron. It's about watching God do the work. And you sit across the table and being like, God's changing his life. God's working in this area. Hey, I provided a scripture too that I've learned over the years from something Pastor Justin said in a message. I just said that in season and it just hit him and his life's being changed. And it's just amazing. Like, you almost get teared up about it if you think about it. Like watching guys' lives just change time and time again. That's what we see throughout all the different churches that do Men of Iron. It's just like watching lives change consistently. You're just like, okay, yes, it's cool curriculum, but to actually watch their lives change through what God's doing is amazing.
So great. How do you train guys? So we're going through it in Fed Hill. We had our weekend. But what does it look like if a guy says, hey, I want that in my life? Yeah. I need someone who's discipling me, maybe one-on-one, but also I want to be able to be available to serve the church and find somebody else. How does it work just in a practical way for that individual to get trained up so that he goes into that discipleship with a mentor-mentee? How does he get trained up so that he feels equipped to be able to do it?
That's a great question. So we do we'll do a weekend like we did with you guys, to kind of understand the framework of what is discipleship, what's core 5. Like we believe in Men of Iron that faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. Like those 5 areas, if you actually take those areas seriously, you're going to create some balance in your life, which we all need. Like if you even think about being a father, faith's number 1, but those things fall underneath. But we kind of get that framework set up for them. The weekend allows guys that are thinking about it, kind of interested in it, to kind of taste it. Like I'm holding these guys accountable. I'm sending them, those guys from the group, I'm sending them text messages. Like, hey, you told me you're going to do this. You told me you're going to read your Bible in the morning. Are you doing it? Right? You're going to spend time with your wife on Monday nights. That's your date night at home. Are you doing it? Right? I know one of yours was like, I need to plan a trip, right? For you and your wife. Are you doing it? Right? And just holding guys accountable to that measure. Guys actually like it. That's the crazy thing. You may think, well, that's going to bother. That's going to.
Like accountability.
100%. And getting a taste of what that accountability, I'm not down your throat. You're grown, right? But if I can just send that text or just keep that encouragement coming towards your way, that's number 1. So you get them to taste that weekend of that experience. And then it's getting guys that are interested in it, right? Who wants that in their life? And explaining the full picture. Hey, we're going to meet twice a month with this mentor. You never graduate. You never arrive. There's no such thing as arrival. Like you need a mentor consistently. And you may be a different season, maybe a different mentor in your life, right? Like my mentor raised 3, Kenny Stutzman's my mentor. He's at our church. He's one of our elders. And he mentors me because the reason I chose him to mentor me, he raised 3 kids. He's an amazing husband. And I'm like, I want some form of that in my life, right? Like, how do I raise kids right now? My son's 1.5 years and he loves yogurt. Like that's the only thing, like that's him right now. And like learning how to raise him, like what's the next step? Like how do I make sure keep pointing my son to Christ? Like, cause it's not, I'm that, like we said at the beginning of when we started, like I'm that representation for him right now. How I'm moving, how I'm talking, all those things, he's looking at me. So as we're creating that mentorship and get to that question is, we just get guys understanding the importance of it. It's throughout the Bible. God has called us to do it, giving bones to it, and helping guys grow that way. And then to start making the pairings. We pair guys up. Yes, I want to have some commonality on we both like football. I love making barbecue. Like we want some commonality there for sure. But also who's going to push me to that next level? And that's how we make those pairings to last for a year.
That's amazing. And then when you start to see it in the church, and you've been working with a bunch of different churches. Yeah. You've been going around and you help some of these pastors and the leadership in these churches to be able to give that motivation, that spiritual motivation to the rest of the congregation. So some of these men are going to step up and say, hey, I need that in my life. Yeah. And accountability, we talked about it this past weekend. Accountability is such a big thing in men's lives. And you have accountability when you're growing up and you're in your parents' home, and you have accountability when you're in school. But then when you're off and you have your own family, you have to, in one sense, be your own accountability, which can kind of be dangerous. If you have a wife, you have a good wife, she's going to keep you accountable. But we need other men in our life that are going to hold us accountable. Yeah. It's just that's the truth. And on the surface, I think men don't want that. We're our own men. We make our own decisions. But then you live life a little bit, and you realize, man, if it's just me making decisions, I'm going to screw this whole thing up. I mean, it's very easy for me to be able to destroy my marriage, destroy my family, destroy relationships. So I need someone in my life that's going to hold me accountable. It's such a healthy thing.
Yeah.
It says in Ephesians chapter 5, when it's talking about being filled with the Spirit, it says to submit. So submission is a huge thing in the Christian walk. We need to be submitted to other men. If you go into a church and you have some of those guys that are maybe just passive, they're just there because their wife wants to be there, the kids want to go to Sunday school, so they show up. Are there any examples that you've seen just working with other churches of a testimony of a guy who's maybe just on the fringe and not really so engaged, that does get engaged with discipleship and he's discipled and his life has changed? Do you have an example of that?
Which one? No, I mean, we see it day in and day out. Like, our YouTube channel's packed full of stories like that. One of the ones that hits home for me, I had a guy, we're meeting at a Dunkin' Donuts doing this Bible study. And this guy was showing up and he was like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know when I'm coming. All right, like, that's okay. I don't know why you're here either, to be honest. But hey, comes in, big lipper in his mouth. We talked about this guy over the weekend. Doesn't even know why he's there. I'm like, that's fine. Keeps coming, keeps showing up. By the end of it, he said, hey, I still don't know why I'm here, but it's actually changed my life. He said, talking about my faith, he said, I had a problem with my church. I stopped going. I said, I had to bury the hatchet in my life. I buried the hatchet for that situation, and I've been going back to church, and it's making a huge impact on my life. He said, I'm about to get married. He said, this has helped me correct my course with planning things out with my wife, my fiance, how we're going to lead our household, how we're going to move, how we're going to operate. He was talking about friends. Like, he's like, I need some other guys in my life. Like, I've been doing this thing solo for so long. Like, I need some other guys. So it was so cool to watch month after month, getting together with him and watching that the change happen in his life. And I would say he's like one of my like go-to guys in the area now, of just watching that growth happen in his life. I mean, there's guys that, there was a story that comes out of Florida, just that prime example. His wife was about to hand him divorce papers. And he's like, he signed up for doing Strong 27 in a mentorship. And she told him the story on the backside, like, hey, I was going to give you these papers, but watching you grow and watch you become the man that God's called you to be, we don't need to do that. Like, I want to continue to grow, and their marriage is blossoming. And it's an amazing story. It's on our YouTube channel. But like, that's what we're in the business for, of watching God's change life. Like, watching him change lives over and over again. And it could be something small. I think that sometimes guys always think it has to be some massive thing in our lives. Like, take the little things serious first before God's going to give you some of this big stuff. Like, are you in the Word daily? And guys look in the mirror, maybe a little bit, right? But let's start small. Let's aim small, miss small. That's one of my favorite lines. If you're aiming at something that's really precise, making that goal, I'm going to read my Bible every morning. I'm going to read a verse. Perfect. Let's start there. I'm going to listen to Pastor Justin's message as I'm driving to work. Perfect. Do that. Let's start there. Because God is going to watch. It's going to churn something in them from the guys this weekend. They're like, yeah, I need this in my life. That's when the growth starts to happen.
Do you see guys that are maybe a little suspicious about it or feeling held back? What could be some things in men's lives that are holding them back? They can be suspicious in the sense, this is just something for these other guys. This isn't for me. Deep down, I think all men know they can have insecurity, they can have fear, but they do know that there's more to life than maybe what they're living with at the moment. And they're just on cruise control and they're trying to survive, but they're maybe internally dying. They're desperate internally, but there could be something, and I've felt it in my own life, that there's something that's holding me back, that I do know that I want more, but comfort is one of those things that comfort is something where it's predictable. It's something that I know that I am not going to be challenged and I'm not going to fail. I mean, failure could be a big part of it, that if I engage with something that is unknown to me, maybe I'm not going to be enough. But are there a few things that you see in men that hold them back from actually engaging with what God wants for them in their life?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is they think they're alone in what they're doing. No one else is going through what I'm going through, right? I'm the only one that's struggling in this area or had this happen in my life, and no one else understands. I think we go back we keep going back to the weekend, but that weekend, when we went around that room, a lot of us went through the same stuff pretty easily. Different severity levels, different degrees of it, but we all went through the same stuff. And I think some guys, we live this mentality like, it's only happening to me. A little bit of a victim mentality, truthfully. Not the case. A lot of guys are going through stuff. You just don't hear about it because they hold it in, they keep it to themselves, and that's what's really destroying them, truthfully. They keep pushing that stuff down. They keep holding back on, I feel like I deserve, I don't know, I'm struggling in this area, but who am I going to tell? Like, I don't want to tell my pastor because he's going to think a certain way towards me. I'm not comfortable talking with the men in my church because I don't know how, what they're going to think about me. That's what I love about like creating an environment of vulnerability inside the church with men. I'm not talking about being soft. Like it's actually a strength. So as we create that, is that an environment? Your guys are more free to talk to one another, to help them out and pull them out of that mire. Like, I think of that all the time. Like, once that church creates that environment, and I know as a man, I can go to that church and I can share I'm going through, and I know I'm not going to get judged or taken out back and beat or stoned because of what I'm going through, but it's an open place that I can be vulnerable. Imagine the growth that can happen out of that. Guys can come in and be like, arms open, like, I'm down bad. I'm down, and having guys that are going to take me, like, bring me back to Jesus. Like, I need it in my life. So I think that's like the biggest thing. Guys think that they're alone. They're the only ones suffering in this capacity. A lot of guys are going through it. I've been doing this for 2 years with Men of Iron, and I can say there's a lot more guys you think going through stuff. They just maybe don't want to agree with it or don't think that it is, but they're going through it. And having that environment that I can be open with, it makes all the difference.
It was interesting too, in just being in the ministry and having relationships with guys over a period of time. They're going to confide in you. And we heard from a few of the guys just struggling with pornography. And pornography is so prevalent in the day and age that we're living in, just because of the easy access to it. And one of the guys who is a leader in our church gave us a testimony about when he was in college and he was struggling with pornography, and his coach called for a meeting on one Saturday and said, "Hey guys, listen, I want to just give you my testimony about how I had sexual sin in my life and how it was destroying me and how I was alone in it. And I know you guys could be struggling with the same thing." And it was a group of guys. I don't know how many, 8 guys or 10 guys. And he said, "Listen, I just want you guys to show up on Saturday morning, and I'm just going to help you guys through this." And this young man on this past weekend was telling us the testimony, and he said that changed him completely because he was struggling in that area, and just bringing it to the light with other guys who were struggling with the same thing, but having one leader that was vulnerable enough to say, "Hey, I've struggled with this in the past. I no longer do. I have victory in it, and I want that same victory for you guys so that you guys can be prepared when you get married, that you're not going into the marriage with this sin, this hidden sin." And it's not as though that we're sitting around and we're just talking about the deepest, darkest sins that we have in our life, or one issue that maybe I have. It's not that at all, but it's at the same time being able to have an environment with brothers, guys that are alongside of you, that maybe aren't in front of you, or they're not under you. You're not discipling them, but you're acquaintances with them or brothers with them. And you're being able to be honest and open with them in the sense of, I'm struggling with this. And if you hear another brother say, I'm struggling with it as well, then all of a sudden you're bringing that thing to the light and both acknowledging that this thing is destroying us and we don't want it to. How do we get through it? And bringing Christ into the center of it so that you can have healing and health as you move forward. That's an incredible thing to have in a church. And to see that accountability to each other is the way to health, that we can't do this thing on our own. And I think with men, we don't want to show that because we want to be strong. Sure. We want to have our reputation with other men in the church, but that can hold us back from being able to actually have an impact and growth in our own life and other men's lives as well.
Yeah. I think that's so crucial to have like other guys. We talked about it a little bit, Mark, too. Like, do I got guys that are going to take me to Jesus? Like, that are going to, we talked about actually on Tuesday on our podcast with Men of Iron. And like, I'm talking guys that are going to cut roofs open for me, like knock people out of the way, lower me down into Jesus's area. So I know that's where the healing is. Do I have them? I don't think all guys do. Truthfully, I know I don't have them all. I'm not perfect. I work for Men of Iron, but I don't have them all yet, right? But finding guys I can be open and honest with that are going to push me, right? Cesar Flores is that guy for me. Like, he is my go-to guy. He pushes me. He sends me those verses, the word in season, keeps me accountable. Like, that's what you need in your life, because he's pushing me closer, makes me a better husband, better father, better leader. Like, that's what I need. And like, that's when we have brothers that we can do life together with. That's where the impact really happens. I know I got guys on my side that are going to take me and carry me. Come on. Like, let's go. Like, I'm ready for life. Like, I'm ready. When I'm doing it alone, it's scary. You don't know where the attack may, but if I have other guys, we're shoulder to shoulder living life. Come on. I'm ready for that next step.
Having guys in your life, like for men, we can have guys in our life that we have things in common. We can hang, we can hunt with them, we can fish with them, we can play golf with them, we can play cards with them. But there's a difference between guys that we're just hanging out with and then guys that are going to lead us to Christ.
Yep.
And I love that example in the book of Mark where you have that paralytic man and he can't heal himself. He can't even get to Jesus, but he has 4 guys that are sacrificing their time and their effort because they care about him. And those 4 guys are going to bring him to Christ. And the importance of having godly men.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that God will put people in your life that maybe naturally you wouldn't pick. And it's not necessarily that you're picking them based upon your preference, but it's based upon the fact that this person has something that I need. They have a relationship with Christ and they have a portion in the body of Christ with gifts that can lead me to Christ, or I can see Christ through that brother. And how do we find that? Do we just sit back and just say, okay, I'm just waiting, God, for those guys to show up? Or is it something where, like in the book of Proverbs, it says, if you don't have friends, just show yourself friendly. And could it be that if I engage with other people in discipleship, or if I engage with other people just in fellowship, that those guys will show up in my life? So there is a proactive aspect of faith saying, I need these men in my life. How do I get them? Well, maybe I'll just go out and try to show myself friendly to those guys in the sense that I'm going to fellowship with them with the gifts that I have. And then next thing you know, I could look up in a year or 2 years and I do have a group of guys around me that would be those 4 guys that brought the paralytic to Christ. So there is a level of, I'm not just going to sit back and wait for God to have these guys show up. That could happen. But is there an aspect of me having to be proactive? Let's just say you got a guy in the church, Chris, who's in some church and he's sitting on the sidelines. He doesn't have any godly men around him. What would that guy do to be able to try to develop, to have those relationships?
I think you hit it right on the head. Like, you got to show yourself friendly. You got to get out there, right? I think so many times we play that backseat of like, oh, they'll just come to me. Like, God will provide. I can tell you God will provide, but sometimes you got to be a little proactive. You got to take a step of faith. You got to get a little, like, that's why I always say with guys, like, rubber meets the road at some point, you got to take a step. Like, we always wait for God to show up, and that is true. God does show up. I don't want to take that away, but sometimes you got to put a little action behind it. Getting up, talking to guys, making those connections happen, right? Be available. But as you create that culture within inside your church, that openness is there, those other guys are going to get Chris. Like, Chris, what are you doing sitting over here? Like, come over here, get in this conversation, or hey, let's go grab coffee next week, and just and those connections, that culture begins to happen within inside the church. That's where it doesn't start. Well, my brother said this, and it was so funny. He's like, if I get past the AV table, I went too far.
Yeah,
right. Like, and that's true.
Yeah,
like we all have our like
parameters,
sections at church. Like, okay, this is my section. When church ends, How fast can I get to that back door? Right? But am I in there to help grow and continue to sharpen myself? Proverbs 27:17. Like, am I there to continue to sharpen myself with that fellowship, with those connections with other guys? And I think that's so crucial for us, because sometimes I was there Sunday, I checked the box, let's get out the door. Right? Are you trying to really grow your faith? Or are you trying to check a box? Like, let's get real with it. Like, are you really trying to have this walk that God is offering to us and giving to us? Are you just there to, hey, Justin saw me. He saw me in the back. I showed up. I'm out now. Right? Like, what's the next step for you? And I think for guys, like, what is the next step for them is to have discipleship in their life, have mentorship in their life. Like, they want to have that walk with God. Challenge one another, hold each other accountable. Be disciplined in an area in your life. Be resilient. Like, that's one of my my word kind of for this year is like resiliency. Like, no matter what comes, like, I'm just going to keep going. It's not always going to be pretty. It may not always look great, but I'm just going to be resilient. Like, I'm just going to keep going. And God's going to show up for me, and I'm going to be taking those steps of faith and see where he takes me.
It's amazing. It's much better to live your life that way with the target, and the target is Christ. And for people to just sit back and get passive, which we all can. Like, men are lazy. Yeah. Let's just say it. 100%. Men are lazy. Men are selfish. Men want their little world. It's their time. And listen, life is hard for men. I mean, in the sense that you have a lot of responsibility, especially if you have a family. So you're working, you have your wife, you have a lot of relationships that you're trying to maintain. But to say, hey, I need something more in the church is a step. That's a huge step. But Christ always calls his disciples, and he calls them to follow him. So they have to make a decision, and they have to do it by faith. But when you do make that decision, you show up and he's preaching the Sermon on the Mount, or he's dividing the bread in John 6, or he's raising Lazarus from the dead in John 11. You get to see God in action when you actually obey what his calling is, and you have to make a step of faith. And so when you do have that, and it could be scary for guys, of course. You're stepping out on the water. It could be that you fail. It could be that you're rejected. The two things that are the most fearful things for human beings is the fear of death and fear of isolation. Yeah. So if I step out and I try to engage with other people in the church, maybe it's negative. Maybe I feel rejected. But is that going to stop me? And then I'm going to have an excuse, oh, those people in that church just don't have love. They're all hypocrites, whatever it might be. And you're just speaking from a place that you feel rejected. Yeah. Listen, rejection is going to be part of it. But if you just obey God and you just do it by faith and you show up, and maybe it doesn't work out here, but then you try again and you do it by faith, guaranteed you're going to see God show up. And then all of a sudden the message from the pulpit on Sunday morning and all those principles that are being taught to you are going to be seen in your life in a very practical way, and your faith is going to come alive.
Come on.
And I would say discipleship is one of the most amazing things that we could have in our life, that we have other men that we're engaging with and we're entering into their troubles, but we're saying, listen, I don't have the answers to this, but I know the one who does. Let's open up the scripture and see what he says about it, and God's going to show up, and you're both going to be ministered to. And you're going to just have a faith adventure. Yeah. Sometimes people think, oh, if I was a pastor, then my spiritual life would be more dynamic. It has nothing to do with if you're a pastor, if you're a lay person, whatever your gifts are, you have a gift and a calling from God. Apply it by faith so that you can minister to other people in the body of Christ. And when that starts to happen, you're going to be very content and satisfied because you have a mission in your life.
Come on.
And isn't that the greatest thing that men want?
That's it.
The thing that men want is they want a mission. Yeah. They want a vision and they want a mission. There's a reason why people go to war and they have a band of brothers when they're in a war zone, then they come back home and they feel completely lost. Because what they had in a war zone, they say, I had one guy in our church who was a Marine, and he said, I wish I could go back just because of the camaraderie that we had as brothers. And you go, what are you talking about? You're living in America. You could go to an amusement park today if you wanted to. You could have anything that you want. You're living in a safe environment. But he'd rather go back into a war zone because he had a band of brothers. And what did they have? They had a mission.
Come on.
And mission is something that is missing in most men's lives. Yep. They're just existing. Not everybody, of course, but those men that are just existing in the church could have a mission, but they have to apply by faith this discipleship principle. And when that happens, they have a vision and they have a mission and they have a purpose.
Come on.
Isn't that the best thing?
Come on.
That's what we need.
I need it. Come on.
It's better to have a mission than it is to just sit back and be comfortable.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That's it. You get guys actually surrounded and that thought process starts playing out. You start getting guys, I always just go back to, like, imagine the church, all your men are on a mission. A church full of men on a mission. Like, come on. What more?
Great.
You know what I mean? And we're all chasing after this. We're all chasing after Christ, and we're bringing everybody along, no matter if it's your first time through the door, you've been there for years. Like, we're taking you, and we're bringing you along to experience what we've experienced and watch this, really, your faith come to life. And to have stronger families within your church because you have men leading the way they should, right? You have guys stepping up to the plate where you need, hey, we're trying to figure out maybe a position or trying to figure out a new elder to put in. Like, you have a plethora of guys. We always tell that. Like, when you have guys starting to step up, it's easier to get leadership roles filled because you're like, oh, this guy's taking his faith seriously. I see it day in and day out. He's the guy I'm going to pick, right? Like, when you think of that, you just see it. Like, it starts to churn that over and over, and you have that churn happening in your church. Come on. What more do you want?
It's awesome. We're praying for it.
Yeah.
We're praying for it. Appreciate you very much.
Absolutely.
And what you're doing.
Absolutely.
It's so important. So thanks, guys, for joining us today. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. And be sure to join us for the rest of the week because we're going to be talking about this subject, which is huge. So thanks for all your help.
Absolutely.
And excited about what's going to happen down in Fed Hill by God's grace.
Come on.